morning, y'all. Thank you for joining me for some real talk from the heart. Reading through Job this morning. And in chapter 20, verse 22, this little phrase stuck out to me this morning that I want to speak from this morning. And so let me read this to you. Job 20, verse 22. It says, "In his self-sufficiency, he will be in distress." In his self-sufficiency, he will be in distress. Meditate on that this morning and how the tendency is, it can really come upon us suddenly where we begin to depend upon ourselves and not depend on the Lord. So what is self-sufficiency? And what does it cause? Well, self-sufficiency is the mindset that you don't need help from anybody else, right? It's kind of this freedom thing where you don't need anything from anyone. You don't need anyone. That self is enough, right? That's the mindset, that self is enough, that you can sustain yourself, that you are independent of anyone or anything. You are self-reliant, right? You don't need to rely on anybody. Another way of looking at it is that you're self-standing, right? You can stand on your own 2 feet without any kind of help or support from anybody. The word autonomous, right? Autonomy comes to mind. Self-empowering and self-authority and those kinds of things. It's having an extreme confidence in one's abilities and worth, right? An extreme confidence in one's own abilities and worth. Man, this is all what self-sufficiency is. Now, self-sufficiency is really anti-biblical when you think about it. God didn't create you and me to be self-sufficient, but philosophy, and I'm talking about pagan philosophy, I'm talking about secular philosophy. Aristotle has a quote that I came across that says, "The self-sufficient is that which makes life choice-worthy and lacking in nothing." Let me read that again. "The self-sufficient is that which makes life choice-worthy and lacking in nothing." That's what Aristotle said. And then Epicurus said the following, that self-sufficiency is the greatest of all wealth, right? Again, that is a pagan, right, secular philosophy regarding self-sufficiency. But Jesus said in John 15, verse 5, the chapter about abiding, he said, "Apart from me, you can do nothing." Right? So Jesus' teaching on self-sufficiency is that you can't do anything. Right? Apart from him, you can't do anything that's worthwhile, and specifically God glorifying. Because when you get down to verse 8 of chapter 15 of John, he says, "In this my Father is glorified, that you bear much fruit." And of course, Jesus is saying that you and I cannot bear the fruit that brings God glory in our self-sufficiency. We need him. In Zechariah 4:6, when Zerubbabel and them were coming back from the captivity and they're going to rebuild the temple, the word of the Lord came to Zerubbabel and said, "It's not by might nor by power, but by my spirit, saith the Lord." Paul asked the question, who is sufficient for these things? None of us are. Right? Our sufficiency is found in Christ, in him alone. Paul, when he found himself going through, situations of poverty and despair, Paul says, "I've learned to be content in all things." But then Paul said this. He said, "I can do all things through Christ who strengthens me." And it was specifically talking about, right, life situations, that he can do all things through Christ who strengthens him. Self-sufficiency, listen, I'll tell you like this, self is not enough. Self will never be enough. God never made us to be enough. We need him. We need him. And as a matter of fact, God will allow situations into our life to remind us that we need him. The Bible is very clear. God gives grace to the humble, which is the opposite of self-sufficient. But he resists the proud. What is the proud? The self-sufficient person. The person that says, "I don't need God. I can do this on my own. I'm a self-made person." Right? Now listen, that is what self-sufficiency is. What does self-sufficiency cause? Well, to my own shame and embarrassment, I know from my own experiences in life, the times that I've been self-sufficient, I've actually gotten myself into trouble, right? Thinking, oh God, I got this, right? I can do this. I can handle this on my own. And then I venture out without God's leading, without God's wisdom, without his guiding. And then I find myself getting into things that I thought I could take, things that I could handle. And again, God's like reminding me, you do need me. You do need me. So self-sufficiency leads to problems, right? It leads to getting out there on the deep end where you can't, right, do it. But then here's another thing that self-sufficiency does, is that self-sufficiency actually leads to depression. It actually leads to depression, self-sufficiency, because when you get out there and you find out that, man, you can't do this alone and that you're not able to make these things happen like you thought you were going to be able to, depression sets in. Now, there is a link between narcissism and depression. Self-sufficiency will make a depressed narcissist. And when you think about it, self-sufficiency can be boiled down to one thing, and that's narcissism. The person that is so full of himself, so self-important, that they think that they're able to do anything they want, whenever they want, and it's going to turn out well for them. But the fact of the matter is it's not. When I look at the word self-sufficient, there's one person that comes to my mind, and that is Satan. That's Lucifer, right? The one who started this whole self-sufficient thing. He rebelled against the one who he was dependent on for his very existence. He rebelled against the one who he was dependent on for his very existence, and that's God. God created him. And he got full of himself and said, oh, I'm going to be the one worshipped. I'm going to be ahead of God. I'm going to be my own God. And that in reality, beloved, is what self-sufficiency is. Self-sufficiency is man's attempt to be his own God. Never works out, man. It never turns out well. We need God, man. We need him. We need him. Man, I hope this spoke to your heart this morning, man, because this verse right here, in his self-sufficiency, he will be distressed. Distress will come to your life if you become self-sufficient. It will. Let us learn, right, to trust in the Lord with all our heart. With all our heart. To not lean on our own understanding. To acknowledge him in everything. In everything. And he will guide our paths. Right? He will give us what we need. The Lord loves you. I love you too. Praying for you. Asking you, please be praying for me today. Oh, I need your prayers today. Help me. Pray for me, please. God bless you all, man. I hope to talk to you guys again tomorrow. Have a good one.